In this video, we're going to elaborate on data types. In Java, there are two kinds of data types, the primitive data types and the non-primitive data types. In the primitive data types, we have 8 types of primitive data types. So I'm going to show you the official Java tutorials, which lists all the 8 data types that is found in the Java programming language. So this is the official Java tutorial that is presented by Oracle, the people who are involved in the development of Java. And in this tutorial, they have covered everything that's involved in the Java language. So I'm just gonna take you through the learning the Java language part, which has a trail called learning the Java language, and I'll recommend all Java programmers that are interested in learning the Java language to go through this tutorial. But the part that talks about data types is inside the language basics. And then when we go into the language basics, we can take a look at variables, and then other variables we can look at primitive data types. So let's see what they have to say in this document. They say here the Java programming language is statically typed, which means that all variables must first be declared before they can be used. This involves stating the variable's type and name. As you've already seen, int gear equals 1. Doing so tells your program that a field named gear exists, holds numerical data, and has an initial value of 1. A variable's data type determines the values it may contain, plus the operations that may be performed on it. In addition to int, the Java programming language supports 7 other primitive data types, that makes it 8. A primitive data type is predefined by the language and is named by a reserved keyword. Primitive values do not share state with other primitive values. The 8 primitive data types supported by the Java programming language are byte. The byte data type is an 8-bit signed to complement integer. It has a minimum value of -128 and a maximum value of 127 inclusive. The byte data type can be used for saving memory in large arrays where the memory savings actually matters. They can also be used in place of int where their limits help to clarify your code. The fact that a variable's range is limited can serve as a form of documentation. So that's for the byte data type. You can read along the meaning of other data types. We have the short, which is a 16-bit signed to complement integer and has a minimum value of -32,768 and a maximum value of 32,767 inclusive. So we have an int here. By default, the int data type is a 32-bit signed to complement integer, which has a minimum value of -2 raised to power 31 and a maximum value of 2 raised to power 31 minus 1. Whatever that value is, we're gonna find out in a short time. So in Java SC8 and later, you can use the int data type to represent any unsigned 32-bit integer which has a minimum value of 0 and a maximum value of 2 raised to power 32 minus 1. So use the integer class to use int data types as an unsigned integer. Okay, so let's not go further into that. You may not understand what they are saying. So we have the next data type is the long. The long data type is a 64-bit to complement integer. And again, remember, all these integer data types are referring to whole numbers. So what they are saying is that a byte, which is an integer whole number, a short, which is also an integer whole number, an int, and a long are all data types that store whole numbers. Okay, the next one is the float. A float data type is a single precision 32-bit IEEE 754 floating point. Its range of values is beyond the scope of this discussion. Okay, so I will not also discuss that as well. But what I can tell you is that a float stores decimal values. real numbers, okay, numbers that have floating point, and I've demonstrated that to you before. The same thing with a double. A boolean is a data type that has only two possible values, true and false. Use this data type for symbol flags that track true stroke false conditions. I'm going to talk about this. And the car data type is a single 16-bit Unicode character. It has a minimum value of or 0. That's the character representation of a Unicode character of 0, which is this, and a maximum value of this, or 65,535 inclusive. So those are the 8 primitive data types. So it means you can declare a variable called car, and then you store a character within it. Okay, so we're going to make use of all these data types, declare the variables that represent them, and make use of them. All right, I showed you examples of the 8 primitive data types. If you're wondering what the ranges of these data types were actually really what they are, then here is this table that will really give you a detailed explanation of the ranges of the data types. So here is the byte data type, which is a numeric integer, and its range is -128 to 127. And here is a short, which is also a numeric integer, whose range is -32,768 to 32,767. Here is the int data type, which is a numeric integer, whose range is -2,147,483,648 to 2,147,483,647. And here is a long, which is a numeric integer, which is -9. I don't really know what that is, but to 9 trillion, billion, whatever. So those are the ranges of the integer data types. Okay, so here is the floating data type, which is a numeric real number, which starts from -3.4 times 10 raised to power 38 to 3.4 times 10 raised to power 38. And here's the double, which starts from -1.7 times 10 raised to power 308 to 1.7 times 10 raised to power 308. Okay, the character data type, it stores characters, and all Unicode characters can be stored in the character data type. And here is the string, but the string is not actually part of the 8 primitive data types. It's just included here because the string data type is always constantly referenced and used, just like the primitive data types. Okay, so here's examples of declaring and assigning values to the 8 primitive data types. I did an example here. Byte b is equals to 12, short s is equals to 100, int I is equals to 2000, long L is equals to 100,000. Notice the L in front here, because you need to put L in front of your value to indicate that it's a long, in order for your program to compile. Okay, so we have a float f, which is equals to -0.34f. Again, recall you have to put the f at the end of the value. And then we have a double D, 78.2567, and then you have to put the D at the end here. But like I said, in the case of the double, the D is not mandatory, so you have to note these rules. Then the character, in order to store a character, you need single quotes, and then you can put whatever character you wish. In this particular example, I inserted a $sign, and then I have a boolean care, which is equal to false. So let's see if we can compile all this program to be sure that I am on the right track. So I javac data types.java, and I compiled, so it means all my data 8 primitive data types declaration was correct. Okay, so that's all for data types in this video, and the next video we're going to talk about the non-primitive data types. Someone might be wondering, how many non-primitive data types do we have? I want you to first remember that the string that we've been using, frequently now is an example of a non-primitive data types. And if you ask me how many non-primitive data types are out there, I don't really know. There are possibly hundreds, if not millions of them. All right, so let's see on the next video.